All right, all right. We are live here with our VC workshop. This is a roundtable discussion with Bitcoin venture capitalists. We got some heavy hitters with us in the room. There's Oleg from Fulger Ventures, Mike Musman from Lightning Ventures, and Max from Hive Mind. And today we're going to be talking about demystifying what you founders need to know about, raising venture capitalists, especially for the first time. So venture capital is one route of funding. Yesterday we spoke about crowdfunding your project or going through grants, but some of you might want to establish companies and go down the traditional private equity route. So what is venture capitalist? We have these three heavy hitters with us today, but what's venture capitalist? So I did a Google this morning and I checked Investopedia, and it says venture capitalist is a private equity investor that provides capital to companies with high growth potential in exchange for equity and stake. Now, I have no idea what private equity means, so I had to Google that one as well. So private equity is an alternative investment class that invests in or acquires private companies that are not listed on the public stock exchange. You see, as even a founder myself, it's kind of like really crazy, all these different words, all these different acronyms. So we gonna get into it with these guys and hopefully get a better understanding at the end of this workshop. All right. So, you guys kind of like identify, I guess, as Bitcoin investors, right? But Oleg, I'm going to pass this one to you. Like, what is this? What's the importance of a VC who understands Bitcoin or understands this space? Could you get into that a bit with us?
Thanks, John. I'm kind of like super excited to be here because we at Fulger Ventures are all in into supporting the Lightning Network community and helping this community to grow and become bigger and larger and more decentralized and distributed. Thank you guys for putting this all together. Very excited. So speaking of like venture capital in general, like we in this community are all on like very big mission to make Bitcoin advance as an ecosystem and Lightning Network as an enabling technology. And for anyone who is on a big mission, I guess they would be looking for like additional resources to sustain themselves and grow on this big mission. So one way of thinking about like a venture capital is actually an amplifier of your dreams, your vision, and your resources by basically providing several main things. And one of them is, of course, capital. Like John's already mentioned a bunch of words. Some were like even new to me, but yeah, capital is one way of acquiring more resources. The other way is actually networking. So typically VCs are speaking, like they're showing up on many events. They're speaking to a lot of people. They speak to people outside of community, inside the community. So they have a network. So they can not only amplify your vision, your dreams, and your execution by providing capital, but also by connecting you with the other parts of the ecosystem and by sometimes, maybe oftentimes, providing also insights as into what's happening in other ecosystems that are typically like overlooked when somebody is focused on like a specific project or like specific part of the ecosystem. And finally, and with this, I like rather transition it to like either like Maz or Max. The Bitcoin VCs, they typically have reasonably good understanding of Bitcoin ecosystem, Bitcoin as a protocol, as a potential monetary system, Lightning Network as a scalability layer. So there is also like different types of knowledge that VCs in the Bitcoin ecosystem have that help them and you make decisions together or like work together in executing your dreams and your visions to create products in this space. That's kind of like not typical for regular VCs in other spaces. who sometimes like invest based on like metrics, on basic like general understanding of how venture capital works, but in and also have sometimes like lower time preference. In the Bitcoin space, most of the VCs, probably all, have like long time preference, and they could be a very helpful addition in building for the long term. And yeah, maybe like Max or Mas, do you want to take it from there? Like speaking of like Bitcoin VCs specifically.
Go ahead, Max.
Hello, everyone. Thanks again to Johns and Ed for throwing this. This is awesome. Yeah, I mean, I'll speak kind of generally on the philosophy of why working with the Bitcoin VC I think is good, and then maybe a little bit on our philosophy at HiveMind. But I think, as Oleg said, we're all on this mission together. I think at this point, for those of us that invest, primarily or exclusively in Bitcoin-focused companies, obviously we all want great returns, just like you guys in building your business. But I think we're all very mission aligned. I mean, there's a reason we're all doing this, and I think everyone on this call, I mean, we're in the trenches with our founders because we want to see a world where 8 billion people have access to a fair and open monetary standard. And I think that's the big difference between us as VCs versus a lot of other capital you talk to, is that we are very mission aligned. And when push comes to shove, at the end of the day, your values and why you're doing this, that's gonna allow us all to do this for a decade, right? So I think that's the kind of alignment. I will say, for me at HiveMind, and actually I think everyone on this call, I view HiveMind Ventures as more honestly focused as a Lightning fund than a Bitcoin fund. I think Bitcoin is interesting, but I'm much more interested in when Bitcoin becomes usable for 8 billion people. And so, as a store of value, that's great. I mean, I get it, awesome. But I'm interested in what happens when you take the internet and you take an open monetary standard that anyone can use, the Lightning Network, and put them together. I think that's when you start getting a lot of new applications. Some of you guys have heard about my new obsession with associating value with information, disrupting Google search, all these new and exciting things that just were not available pre-Lightning. So I view us as more of a Lightning Network focused fund. And our thesis is that in a decade, large companies, consumer internet, finance, energy, all plug in the Bitcoin protocol, and likely the Lightning Network, or whatever ends up scaling Bitcoin, but I think it's going to be Lightning. And I guess just in terms of a little bit of my philosophy, with HiveMind, is I try and have kind of one foot in, sort of Bitcoin land. I am obviously very much a Bitcoiner, very focused on Lightning Network, and also one sort of foot in more traditional Silicon Valley venture capital. I came out of a more traditional Silicon Valley venture fund. I don't necessarily agree with what the Valley has done betting on crypto. I think they made a huge miss there, but I think there are a lot of lessons that we can learn from the last several decades of venture capital that I'm trying to help bring more into the Bitcoin ecosystem.
Yeah, I think you touched on one of our other topics as well, which is like kind of like this how do you find use cases and this product market fit kind of thing. Mike, what would you say about product market fit and founder market fit? Because apparently that's a thing as well, which I didn't know, that there's founders also having to fit a market. What does that even mean?
Well,
and how does that help support developing what Max is talking about like these use cases, these new use cases that propel Lightning and Bitcoin?
Well, first off, why Bitcoin VCs? It's really great that there's options out there. And, when you guys are making your decks, okay, because remember now, a lot of people don't think about this, but it's not just founders who have to raise capital. Okay. VCs have to raise. This pain process, right, that the founder goes through, with VCs who might, waste their time or jerk them around. Not us, of course, on this call at all. But, in general, right, they have a lot of a reputation there, right? And then at the same time, we have to do this as well, right? Because what makes up VCs, I don't know if you got this in your Google search, or LPs, right? Limited partners, people invest in VCs, right? Because they have a specialized knowledge and that's what they do, okay, is a particular space, okay? So when we go out to raise money from LPs, we have to make a pitch deck, so to speak, or some sort of materials and tools, okay, in the same process that founders do. And who do we raise from? because the last thing that you want to do is explain Bitcoin. Okay. You don't want to, explain Bitcoin to any of your potential LPs. My personally, and they have real invested capital. Okay. I don't. We have a very small amount of invested capital. Okay. You don't even want to go through that, right? You don't want to talk about why Bitcoin, why Bitcoin only. Okay. Why Lightning, and what is Lightning, and Like it's just a monumental waste of time. Right. So as a founder, you're kind of in the same boat, right? And when you just start, blindly LinkedIn messaging, or just, you start getting into freak out mode, and I want to get, fundraising, and people start asking you these real basic questions, what's Bitcoin and why is Bitcoin? So like now the ecosystem has enough capital and trajectory that you really don't have to go through all that. Which you probably did before, right? So, just being thankful that a founder, and I would not lead with that. I would not start with any of that crap in your deck, Lightning Network growth charts, and all those things are fun and all, okay? But I would not put that in the deck. And then you also have the privilege of working with people who are solely focused on Bitcoin, right? And whether that's with a Lightning focus, or dedicated straight to Lightning, or maybe they have a lot of connections with the people building on Liquid and these other sort of in the Bitcoin layer 2 ecosystem, and you get to have some symmetry with their other portfolio companies. So if you're a fintech company operating in normie land, okay, and your VC only invests in consumer products and beverages and, carbonated drinks, there's probably not a ton that VC can really do in the trenches, or if you're working with companies that are solely or a VC that's solely in this arena, right? Like Max or Oleg, and you come to him with a problem, okay? They have a very good understanding of how it can be attacked, symmetry with their other companies, potential partnerships, ways to co-optively market together or to use other tools. And that's what I think you might want to think about when you start to take money from someone, is kind of it's not just about the capital. Sometimes it is, right? Because you need money. It's not just about the capital. It's also about kind of getting into a little bit of a relationship. What else can they do? Are they going to be there for you when you need them? And that's ultimately what it comes down to. And are they going to be able to help? So that was a little bit about Bitcoin VCs. And the three best are here on this call, of course. I mean, Johns, you spared no expense. You got the three best here. But so you were talking about founder market fit. Look, I mean, you have to think about, are you doing this alone? When do you get a co-founder? The investors look at that. It's very important. It can be the most important element when a VC is deciding to fund a founder or not. Okay. And yeah, the entrepreneur, got to be passionate and dedicated and have relevant experience and all of this. But, I mean, a few questions is who are the founders and key members? Is there one? Is there three? Is there a magic number? Right. Some VCs have rules that if they're going to invest in a solo founder, he must be technical. He must be technical. That's some people that kills it. Okay. Is it two co-founders, right? Where maybe one of them can sell and market and the other one is super technical, right? That's a very powerful combination. So if you are a solo founder and you're incredibly technical, it might be worth it to really explore that co-founder or somebody who's really going to fill that sales and marketing position, and are you scratching something from your own itch? Is something people often like to say, why did you set out to build that company or to take it on? Founder market fit is something that people really look at that I don't know if it's talked about that much.
Oleg, what about you? What are the kind of companies or founders that you look to invest in? And is it kind of like similar to is your thought process similar to what Mike was describing there?
Well, I guess we all share like the same perspective of trying to find and align with founders who are like mission driven and understand the fundamentals of Bitcoin Lightning Network and have a kind of like rationale of being in the space going far beyond like creating a startup and making money, but rather having like a global impact on society in like different aspects. I think what we are looking for is like oftentimes about being able to navigate uncertainty and make rational decisions based on trade-offs and also understanding what is unknown. Because we're in like a super new space. Like personally, my background and the background of our venture capital fund, we're like software entrepreneurs. We always used to build software and to scale software. But now, probably for the first time in history, we have software that has profound monetary, geopolitical, and like financial and social aspect. And it all has a lot of overlap with like regulations, cross-border money transfer. So there's like so many things that are like still moving around, regulations to name a few. So being able to understand what is unknown, how to navigate through the limits of technology, which are also kind of unknown, like to name the things as they are. Like technology is in development, Bitcoin is in development, Lightning Network is in development. So understanding how to go to market in high uncertainty by making decisions based on trade-offs and humbly acknowledging what is unknown, I think is one of like very interesting qualities that can help contribute substantially to developing Bitcoin and Lightning ecosystem and building a sustainable business. And of course, also understanding of like who to partner with, the value of long-term relationships. That's also like very important, for us. In a nutshell, I guess.
Yeah, with regards to the founder or kind of like companies in which like Folger invests with, I was just looking at the portfolio there, and it seems to be a lot of you say you have you're coming from the software company background and software engineering background. Would it be right to say that we can see that reflected in the portfolio with regards to companies like Deloitte or Umbro or Breeze, which are really kind of like setting up infrastructure. They're kind of like infrastructure projects, that help other people build on top of Bitcoin, I imagine.
Yeah, our thesis is kind of like a broader ecosystem-wide thesis that can be summarized in by saying like one tide lifts all boats. So Max and Mas were already like talking about how important it is to find like partners and to collaborate in the ecosystem. So we are more like an ecosystem fund that is trying to help support and grow different parts of the ecosystem so that like the tide lifts all boats. But it's pretty much all starts with infrastructure. But at the same time, there are a few areas where we believe Lightning Network can substantially impact adoption of Bitcoin as an ecosystem is through like things like rewards, like microtransactions in games, to name a few. So startups that are at the front of consumer adoption and business adoption, as well as building infrastructure, are like the startups that we're really excited about. But in general, we're kind of like we see ourselves as like an ecosystem supporting fund.
Yeah, I'd love to jump in there a little bit. And I think every founder is unique, and I don't think there is one formula. That's the approach that I take. Like, it's one of those things where like you know it when you see it, right? But there are. I was just reflecting right now as you asked this question, like what are some of the common traits that have emerged among founders that I've backed and that I really like enjoy working with? And there's a couple that it's pretty common to almost all of them. The first one for me is a unique insight about the world, right? This is from sort of the classic Peter Thiel, view, a secret. A founder that I invest in, I want to have a secret about the world that no one else understands. And sometimes that secret comes out in our pitch meeting. Sometimes they write about it. And a lot of the founders I've invested in is because I've read their essays first and foremost. And that to me is one really good way to explain to me what your unique secret about the world is. And I can give you some examples. Nicholas from Galoy, he put out 2 articles. One explains how the Lightning Network, Bitcoin and the Lightning Network, is going to scale to eat the entire traditional financial payments network. And there was, sort of Bitcoin as Fedwire, and then Lightning Network that was going to eat MasterCard, Visa, Swift, ACH. When I read that article, my mind was blown, and I knew immediately this guy has a secret, right? Similarly, when I read everything from Roy at Breeze, and I understood he had a secret about how non-custodial Lightning could work. Recently, I've had that with a couple other founders, my unc at Umbrel, the Geyser guys. I read all their stuff. I think those are all they all have very unique visions or insights about the world. And I think another way you could say that is vision. Every single founder that I back has a vision of what the world could look like in 5 to 10 years out. And it often sounds a little bit crazy, but when you hear them lay it out step by step, it makes sense. And if you want to, get a great example of what someone like that looks like, go back and listen to like the Steve Jobs interviews from the 80s. And obviously everyone has their own vision of that, or their own vision of the world. But like that dude obviously had vision. There's a reason he's a legend, right? So that's number one, unique insider vision about the world. Number 2 is I want someone that has taste. And taste is hard to quantify. Often it means, sort of like it could be technical taste. Like, why did you choose the language that you're writing in? Are you kind of obsessive about that? Visual taste. I think, for example, Umbrel, those guys have some of the greatest taste I've seen in the ecosystem. I think you guys actually here at Bolt Fun have great taste. Taste is so important because you need that to get whatever your product is to go mainstream. And this is one reason I also love, it's not a must for me, but having some designer in the founding team early on is great. And I know this is ironic because I have like the worst design in all of my stuff, but I appreciate it from other people. So taste is very important to me. The next one is that the people are obsessive. Like the more I talk to these people, like almost every founder in my company, like they have like this obsessive thing where they just cannot stop working on this or thinking about this. And I think almost every founder that I've backed is a little weirdly obsessive, which I love. And then the last one, and I think this is something that I'm a little different than some other folks on, is I do love the big ideas and the big theory, but that by itself is not enough. I have to see some evidence that you ship and that you ship frequently. That to me is very important. Even if the ideas are not like fully baked, and even if that changes over time, I want to see you ship. Great example here is with Stacker News. Kian ships like nobody else. And so when I made that investment, I knew he had good taste. I knew he had unique insights about the world, but I also knew that like this dude is doing a new release every week. Of course, he's going to be able to iterate fast and see what works and what doesn't. And so shipping, even if it's the found guys, they ship a lot. Like even if it's not the final product, look at what Elon is doing right now with Twitter. Like we don't know what's going to work. The more you get out there, you have your vision, you try little micro adjustments. That's how you build something fast, right? Is you need to get real world feedback. So I love founders that ship.
Yeah, I really like that because one of the things you said about, what is your unique secret or perspective of the world, right? And that you often read people's essays or blog posts or whatever to get that, to understand their vision or to get aligned with their perspective. And it really shows how important writing, and which we try to do. We try to promote this building in public kind of thing with projects during our tournaments and stuff. So guys, just remember, hear that, share your perspectives with the world, build in public. It does go a long way, it seems. I didn't even understand, I didn't even know that this was something that you guys would actually take into consideration, but it does make a lot of sense. And I think one of the hardest things for a founder to do is to communicate that vision, right? Oftentimes, not many people tend to get it, especially if we're in this new kind of space, and if the founder is trying to do something very innovative, they might not and especially if they're technical, they might not have the words to properly articulate it. But it's super important in not only convincing VCs, but also to excite your team, to keep your team on board. You need to not only show them, the short-term goals and roadmap of like, these are the deliverables that we need to hit, but what is the overall vision that's going to bind this company together, bind this team together for us to go for the long haul. So that's a very, very interesting insight there, Max. I do appreciate it. I think, Oleg, we got you back? Yeah, you had like some nice trees and stuff behind you. Now it's changed. What's going on? Like the background before.
Always on the move.
Always on the move.
Can confirm.
All right.
Sorry for disruption.
You just missed some like mega insights from Max there. It was really awesome talking about founders sharing their unique perspective in the world. And basically, I think he said to everybody, build in public, build more in public.
And write in public, like lay out.
Yeah, and another I think one founder who does that really well in the space is Roy. Roy from Breeze. He just like publishes like a bunch of articles like on some next level stuff. He coined the phrase LSP, Lightning Service Provider, and of course their business is very much benefiting from that, or they are actually a LSP themselves. But he recently posted something about the maturation of Lightning. It grows up by going vertical. Did you guys have a chance to go through that?
Yeah, definitely, and it is maturing. I just want to add something for what Max said real quick, because I love what he said, but also a founder who's like really obsessed with their product. And you can kind of tell, it's shipping, right? It's updates. It's constantly doing that. I love how Max focuses on that, but just being obsessed with your product, just really using it, and one of my favorite qualities of a founder is if I'm getting obsessed with the product, or if I'm using it all the time, and that feedback is constant and it's valuable, and it's, hey, this doesn't work, or this hung up, or here's a screenshot, this glitched. There are some founders who minutes, couple hours, we reproduce the error, we're on it, like they're just on top of it, and to be able to like get that feedback and then to like immediately address it, is really cool. And you can kind of tell some who maybe aren't obsessed with their product, because if they were, surely they would have seen this. You know what I mean? Surely like you would notice that login is misspelled, if you're obsessed with your product. So yeah, that was it.
Yeah, so we had a question from Agreement, which is one of the participants, right? So I want to transition into some stuff which is kind of like dealing with your thought process as a VC. Maybe we go, you guys go through that. But just to set the tone, if you're a project who just went through the Legends of Lightning tournament, what would you expect the teams to do to get ready for funding? So that's kind of like setting the tone. These projects are kind of like, maybe not incorporated as yet, and they've just gotten that MVP out there. What is the process that you guys that these projects should go through, and what's your thought process going through that? Maybe we start with Musman. How about you?
Man, that's a freaking loaded question, bro. I mean, where to start? I mean, is your business, is your idea working? Is the team complete? Is it suitable for venture capital, right? Is it even something? And you were talking about, Breeze and the maturity of the Lightning Network. I mean, look, you've got implementations and liquidity services and node management software, nodes as a service, wallets, neobanks, payment solutions, and then, I mean, they're, gaming. But not everything is really suitable for funding in this way, right? Some of the projects might not be, but that doesn't mean that there are no options, right? There's things like Geyser. There's a lot of other things out there in ways to fund, and it might just be a little bit of a smaller business. It might turn into an open source, funded thing. But I mean, as far as what to do, I mean, that is like, I'm going to let them talk. I mean, where do you even start with that? What to do?
All right. How about we reframe it as this, right? So you guys have definite qualifiers, right, of what you're willing to take up, like invest in and what you're not willing to invest in. We mentioned founders. I think, slightly hinted on like having actually a company that can be invested or something incorporated. What about like the size of the market? Max, I know this is like something that we've spoken about in the past as well. Is there a certain size of the market opportunity that you look to explore with these companies? Can you talk about that? Oh, and also, apparently there's this thing called a unicorn, and I'm not really sure what that means and why you guys are so obsessed with it, because I don't know if you know, but they're kind of like these mythical things that, I thought it was fairy tale, but maybe Max has some different opinion on that. Could you tell us about
it? Sure. So for me, I mean, at this stage, in the early stage, which is where I like to go really early, I mean, I literally only care about two things. Are you exploring a massive, massive market with really interesting questions? And are you the right person to do it? That's it. And so when I look, and again, I want to echo Muzz here on this, like there are tons of ways to build your project or business. You could get an open source grant from Block. You could use Geyser. You could bootstrap and try and get real customers and revenue. And for 80% of companies, that's the way to go. But if you do want to play the VC game, or at least the way that I want to play the VC game, then I need to like credibly believe that there's a world where you can become, let's call it, one of the, 100 largest companies in the entire world on the planet. That's what I'm interested in. And so, and you can tell, you shouldn't necessarily force that just to raise venture capital. Because I can generally tell if someone's really thinking that big or not. And again, that comes out in the writing, there comes out what we talk about. But for me, what I'm interested in, and literally at this stage, like when I was looking through all the different projects in the tournament, I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff in there, but I only have so much time, right? And so the thing that I'm looking for really quickly is just, okay, interesting project. Is there a world where this could be, a $10+ billion company at maturity? That's it. And so that's honestly the only question that I'm concerned with at this stage when you're building. And obviously I want to see, once I get past that, I want to see the evidence that you're the right person to do it, that you can ship. And so, I mean, just to throw this out there, I mean, I looked at, some of these projects, a couple that, just stood out for me. And, for example, Az's idea of like, can we get really cheap lightning nodes for every single human being on the planet? That's a really big fucking idea. I don't know if it's going to work or not, but like, that's a really big idea. Some of these ideas, obviously I've told you I'm very obsessed around associating value with information. I'm not saying this is the right approach, but like the bookmark.org project, that stood out to me because I was like, okay, that's interesting. Like there's a world where you could build Google search on top of that. So those are the kinds of like big, really, really big markets that I'm looking for. Can we get payments for 8 billion people or for a huge section, for your geography, or can we do something totally brand new that is, that could end up being Apple or Google? And again, I wouldn't force that, like only if that kind of comes out of you organically. But that's what I'm looking for.
What about you, Oleg? Do you search for these unicorns as well?
Max is definitely the master of unicorn hunting. And yeah, I second what both Max and Maz said. What maybe I could still add is to build making an impact globally using Bitcoin and Lightning as a technology stack. It's gonna take time, and it's probably gonna take like more than a few years. So in terms of utilizing capital and specifically venture capital, we think it's good to be very mindful about using the capital to build a sustainable company. So there might not be like the unicorn vision, maybe like from day one, but if there is awareness of how to use like even like the first chunk of capital in a way to sustainably grow and develop, and maybe like eventually you could like pivot to this unicorn idea like in the next stage. But if you kind of like burn through the first capital raise, and then like you don't know what to do, you don't know like how to raise like the next round, and how to basically sustain the team, while navigating through the uncertainty of Bitcoin and Lightning adoption. So this is probably like what's interesting to keep in mind. And it does not mean like getting into kind of like a rat race of like meeting KPIs and like raising more and more and more. Not at all. It just means being aware of what comes next after like say you like deploy like half of the capital, where the team is, what are the radars showing about like the outside world, and what are the team's own like compasses actually showing, and how to combine them together to make the right decisions to basically not go out of business. This is like a very, very long-term journey. It's a journey that could take like even the journey to unicorn from day one could probably take like at least a few years and more. So how to build like a sustainable operation by deploying capital in the right time, in the right amount. Yeah, that's probably what I could add.
If I could add just one last really quick thing on that with the unicorn thing, because I think you made a good point, Johns, about the animal itself, like, and maybe we get rid of that animal. Do you think it's interesting to note that the whole concept of unicorns and that the unicorn is $1 billion plus valuation, right? Like that all is kind of relative and is changing in real time as obviously the monetary system, is completely debased. And so I do think that this whole idea of like what once was a unicorn 10 years ago, like what is $1 billion in USD today versus then, right? Like 40% of all dollars are created in the last 2 years, right? So, or whatever the number is. And so I do think it's interesting, and no one really knows what, unicorns are going to look like on a Bitcoin standard. And I do think that's going to happen faster than a lot of people realize. I still think at the end of the day, like big companies, like if you create Google search, the next Apple, like, okay, you're going to be really, really big, even in Bitcoin terms. But I do think the traditional venture capital world has no idea what's coming when we flip to, to hard money instead of easy money.
I think a unicorn in the Bitcoin space is basically going to be a company which has on its balance sheet 1 billion Bitcoin, right? So that's
growing Bitcoin revenues, right? Like in sats.
Yeah, Mike, you were about to hop on before my stupid joke.
Well, like Max said, right? You start going through these projects and you only have so much time. And at a glance, he knows pretty quickly. Now, granted, you get to know founders, you can do deep dives. Like, I'm not saying that there isn't more to unpack there, but also think about how you're presenting your business, right? You have to know very quickly, right? When you're emailing a VC, don't send 35 pages. All right. You know what I mean? Maybe just do a paragraph. What are you doing? Why it's important? You got 30 seconds. What are you building? Why should anyone care? Get that there. And then to Max's point, when you're a founder, kind of doing some vision shaping on your company, think about building those big ideas. Think about what you're doing, right? If your goal is to have a, unicorn, since that's the word that we're throwing around here, if your goal is to have a, to build something that's big, you have to have potential, addressable markets that can support it. Okay. And that's not like putting down anyone who's building some obscure node management tool. Okay, that's much needed as well. You know what I mean? But just know what you're building, right? Is it lightning nodes at a very cheap that are around the globe, right? Is that a massive industry, or is it like some obscure liquidity sort of thing? You know what I mean? Or something else, which is still great. And it needs to be built too. And it can still lead to an awesome exit and can be a great job for you and can get you your dream job, right? Building the things that you have right now in Bolt Fun, whether they're billion-dollar businesses or not, that's the resume. That's the portfolio. That's the connections that you make for the next thing or whatever that thing is. But just since we're talking about founders and like things that we look for and like, I just wanted to say, the worst thing that founders can do is think they need funding right away before anything's done. It's like, oh my gosh, I have the best idea. First, we raise 5 million. We hire a CFO. That's terrible. Okay. And that's major red flag, and the founders who systematically set some milestones, you know what I mean? I want to ship something. Let's get 500 people signed up, kicking the tires, and then let's talk about it, right? And then maybe they raise $200,000, to hire 1 or 2 people, and then let's get to 2,500 people on the platform, using our widget, whatever it is, hit a goal, right? You don't need a CFO day one. You don't need to go out there and my favorite founders got so much done for very, very little. Okay. Very, very little. And I don't really want to name names, but somebody who can get to version 1, including legal, have something for 90 grand of their own money that they invested, and were able to pull some strings and maybe they saved some money here and there, but got something done for almost nothing. And then they go out, that's just so much more powerful than something that isn't done. And we're trying to raise 1.2 million and whatever. Right. And there's exceptions to it. Okay. There's exceptions. There's the guy in his 50s who's built and scaled, 5 companies in his life. Okay. He doesn't necessarily fall in the same category. There's there is no one way, but I love to look at founders who've accomplished a lot for very little. Or even in this environment, this is the last thing I'll say because I don't want to talk all over y'all, but, we've had a founder who the market's terrible. Okay. Everyone's freaking out. NASDAQ's down 5%, everything's crazy. And they instituted a hiring freeze. Okay. They didn't lay anyone off, but they instituted a hiring freeze. They tightened things up. They battened down the hatches. They raised a small 500K tranche just in case, just to pad the runway a little bit, just to prepare for the end of the world, right? That is the kind of that is who I want to invest in, is somebody who's at least prepared, for anything that may happen, as opposed to some founders who right now in this terrible environment might have their burn rates at all-time highs. They might not have a lot of money coming in, and they might not be overly concerned because 16 months seems like a eternity. We have 14 months of runway. Life is good. Spend it. You know what I mean? Whatever it costs, spend it. And that time flies, dude. It goes real quick. And, I just think that having that mindset, not scared money, right? Not the Wizard of Oz problem. You lack courage in one way or another, but just to be able to be prepared, do a lot for a little, and everything that you do is calculated. Okay. We have some founders, they do not hire willy-nilly. Okay. I mean, even if they're doing a social media person that's part-time, they will scrutinize the hell out of every dollar and every person that they hire. They will wait for the sweet pitches and really swing at them, as opposed to 35 job postings on Bitcoiner jobs. You know what I mean? And that's fine too. I'm just saying, like, I like the founders who really calculate every move, every hire. And when you end up meeting that team, you can tell that they hired the right person, you know?
All right, we're a few minutes to the hour, but we did start a bit late. Are you guys okay to go 10 past the hour?
I think my next meeting is on this call, so let me text them.
Okay. Well, there's a few questions that I want to get out quickly for you guys. So one of them was about traction. I think this was again from Agreement. What is the what are you guys' views on like how important is traction for the project before you invest in it? Just let's do a quick go.
Lightning round. Start it off. Oleg.
Traction is in a way a derivative of the adoption of Bitcoin and Lightning Network. So it's kind of like chicken egg situation. We all work to increase Bitcoin and Lightning adoption, but we have to sometimes apply judgment based on traction. I think what is interesting about traction is the number of like iterations and like tiny failures, or like even like bigger failures that are not like totally derailing you, but the velocity of learning basically. So I would say like very interesting way of measuring traction is like this week we learned this, and next week we learned this, and this doesn't work. Now this is what actually works. So the velocity of learning and iterating on like any major path of execution that you have, like be it like technology upgrade or customer acquisition or something else. So velocity of learning is probably like an ecosystem neutral way to measure traction. That's interesting to keep in mind from my point of view.
Yeah, I love that. Like velocity of learning is fantastic. Because you're right. I mean, there's only so much we can do within the ecosystem in terms of like, is it growing or not? But like to throw out two examples there, like I already mentioned one, but in terms of shipping and getting new users, in my mind, the two that I've seen are the absolute best of this, Albi, those guys ship like crazy. You get real adoption. Stacker News ships like crazy. Adoption increases. I'm not saying it's going to be a 10x because there's just not that many Bitcoin Lightning people yet, sadly, but we'll get there. But within our ecosystem, you can see those guys, they just learn faster than anybody.
In terms of traction, though, you know, I don't think we have any hard rules. You know, like some more disciplined normie VCs. But you know, there are plenty of VCs who won't invest in a pre-revenue project, just period. You know, maybe it would be wise to incorporate some of these rules. But I know that, you know, like Max, you know, that's not a big focus of his. Like I look at that, right? I want to see something. I want to see something that's built in some kind of revenue. And if you had 10 downloads last week and you have 40 this week, you're up 400% week over week. All right. I mean, however you want to slice it, that's a good sign, you know, and I love seeing those charts or even checking in after a year or for follow-on funding. You know, we don't invest again. I personally will not invest again unless there's meaningful progress. Just because there's another opportunity to invest again, it's not always the best thing.
Yeah, so I guess traction, like Mike, especially from some of our conversations, you want to see some number at least instead of no number.
We've invested in some pre-revenue companies, right? Unless you implement a hard rule, you know, we have a hard rule, no uncapped notes. I don't even care what the company is. It's just not happening ever. You know, I mean, that's like a hard rule. Like I'll never waver on that, right? But a lot of, you know, without saying no pre-revenue companies, you know, there's always something, right? There are a few companies that we invested in that were pre-launch, you know, and had pretty even high profile sort of were big buzz companies, you know, and we'll see.
Yeah, and I want to just add in there. For me, it depends also somewhat on the type of company. If I'm doing a more traditional payments company, right, then obviously revenue numbers are more important to me. But if we're taking a big swing and trying to do one of these, you know, visionary ideas like the data thing, then user growth and page views is more than enough for me.
So I do have a question on the maybe touches on the payments and some of the economics. Max, before you go, I'll throw this to you. Are companies building on layer one screwed if their unit economics need cheap layer one transactions, or are you letting these implications influence how you allocate? Or are you allowing these things influence how you allocate capital? This is from Jeff from Forkable Recipes.
I'm not sure I understand the question. The question is
so yeah, how I would determine it is, you know, like, do you look at companies which depend on layer one kind of like operations, like transactions, and if the cost of, like, we all assume that the cost of layer one transactions are going to increase, if the company has, sorry, I'm really trying here. If the company is really dependent on, like, let's say, like opening channels or something, and that's gonna, you know, that's gonna be super impressive, versus someone working on that layer three kind of layer and that application layer, for instance.
Sure. No, I think I get it now. I mean, like high level, I mean, first of all, no hard and fast rules. Everything is a unique situation. So I'll consider everything on a case by case basis. But generally speaking, there's a reason that I don't really invest at layer one. I mean, I've done a couple, but really 90% of my deals are Lightning. And that's because I think that the interesting things come when Bitcoin is useful as a medium of exchange. And, you know, one day unit account failed, I think that's way, way out far in the future. So absolutely, I think being able to actually move the Bitcoin, like, again, going back to Nicholas's article, which I think he laid this out perfectly, Bitcoin layer one to me is Fedwire, right? That's like the inter-settlement network for all of the central banks and the big banks and whatnot. Like, are there cases where it makes sense to do something at layer one? Sure. But like almost all the companies I'm investing in, I want it to be like actual people that are using like either micropayments or reasonable size payments. In terms of the opening channels, that's like a bit of a specific question. I think that is an open question of like how, you know, for example, are we gonna have channel factories? Like there's a lot of stuff there that, I mean, we can't get into right now, but that's one where I want to hear the perspective of the founder. And I don't know the answer, so I want them to tell me the answer.
That's fair. And you guys, Oleg, does that, do you invest in layer one companies, blockchain based companies, or are they just like on Lightning?
We do focus primarily on Lightning, as all of us, I guess, here in this community. But we do also invest in like Bitcoin infrastructure, Bitcoin security, like self-custody companies, because we're trying to, yeah, as I said, like follow the one tide lifts all boats approach. But I fully second Max on how he thinks about Lightning, and that most of the adoption and also most of the innovation will come to Lightning. Just like imagine for a second how money evolved. So money evolved from like large indivisible like bulk physical money, such as like stones, cows, then it got like smaller to like bricks and like shells and like small like pickles, and then eventually it got to like fiat money, and then it's getting to digital money. So in the traditional financial system, money is decreasing in size and getting digital, and with that comes the velocity of money, like how you move like the rock from one place to the other place. Instead, like if you wanted to give rock to someone, you would just like move the people, and they would live around this new rock, and they would think like this is their new money. So now this is different. All the money is becoming digital, and the velocity of money is increasing. And this is very important and very good for the financial system, because a healthy economy relies on the velocity of money. The more velocity of money is there, the more everybody like is making money, and the more the society is like prosperous. So now imagine most of the economy is going digital. Digital economy is borderless. We can transact from anywhere to anywhere, from the Philippines to South America, from Europe to Canada. Like you can transact in a digital space almost like borderless. And in a digital economy, you can also transact much faster with microtransactions. This is the future of the financial system, and Lightning is the way to that future, to a larger economy with a more velocity of money and with less friction, with lower cost of transactions. And what you need, like what Jeff Bezos was saying, like about his fundamental vision for Amazon, people are never gonna want to pay more. People want to pay less and have faster delivery. This 100% applies to payment rails. In the payment rails, you want to have less overheads, less transaction cost, faster delivery. So this is kind of like the technology market fit for the Lightning part of Bitcoin, and this is where like the big future is. If we kind of like take a financial system, like, and a monetary system and economy from like a 360-degree like helicopter type of view.
On the topic of ecosystem growth, we had a problem, a question from Ajay. So this is from the Stack or Spend team. Are VCs only interested in projects that have massive scaling potential, or is there interest as well in places that may be less value, like may give a less return on investment or like capital investment, but important to Bitcoin adoption on a whole? Right. So it may not have like a good business prospect, but it's good for maybe like some infrastructure stuff, or just good for adoption of the network. What do you guys think?
You know, we're all in a different position. I know Max is probably the best to answer this because he's always slugging for the fences, right? So don't take it personally. Don't take it personally. And by the way, you should never take it personally when a VC is not investing. Okay, this is a relationship that lasts many years, and every no, just think of it as it's a no for now. If you really want to, if you have a great month or a great quarter, send your investor updates to the 2 or 3 investors that passed. Just keep them in the loop. I love that. I get updates from companies that we didn't invest in, we're not invested in, right? Because these relationships can like mature and compound over like a long period, right? But you know, we're in a different position because we also have this syndicate vehicle, right? So we're not just investing, right? We're not here saving the manatees and the rainforests and everything else, right? If I'm investing in Max's fund, okay, that's not for him to go do charity in another country and like, you know, do a really nice, you know, giving. Okay. He has a like fiduciary responsibility to return as much capital to me and his investors as possible. And then hopefully that cycle repeats for many years, right? And in the process, he gets to help companies who are not necessarily charities. We have some investments that I don't think will ever be unicorns or decacorns or whatever kind of corns. They're awesome businesses. They're great founders, and they're certainly going to be a good return, right? Because, you know, to get back more when you invest your own money, okay? I have plenty of investments that are not going to be swinging for the fences, 1000x returns, okay? But they will be good returns, right? I mean, they could still be very good, but not really the level that somebody is really looking for.
All right. And since we have to, Max definitely needs to go. This has been an amazing conversation. I have one more question down there from Lightsats. When it comes to user monetization, if there's a clear plan right from the beginning, how does that play a role in influencing your decision or funding the idea? That seems like a kind of layup, but let's go.
Well, I think, again, I mean, for me, I'm looking at, like, if you have a clear plan for monetization, how big can it get? And I think one thing to keep in mind, even to that last question, is, I mean, things can change over time, right? Like, I actually I don't think that many of the biggest and most exciting businesses out there knew exactly what their monetization was going to be early on. And that's okay. Like what I'm more interested in, and by the way, and again, this is a very, very specific one venture capitalist, very specific take on the world, very different for angel investors. And also to echo what Muzz was saying, it also depends, right? Like if the capital is coming from an angel and it's their own capital, then they can do whatever the hell they want, right? If charity plus some minor returns is part of their mandate, great. If they're investing outside capital and then taken, then absolutely they're, like me, I have fiduciary responsibility and absolutely looking to 1000x with my investments. But on this one, I would just say keep an open mind, right? Like you may have, this is phase one, but think about some of the different ways that could evolve over time if you want to build a really big company. The company, like the private company that I am most excited about in the whole world right now, which is going to be a Bitcoin company very soon, is Replit. I think Replit is like, I would back up the truck on Replit at whatever valuation right now. They could be an Apple. They really can. And if you look at what it was in the early days, it was just a website for people to code together. I mean, it doesn't look that big, but if you see in the future, all the different areas that they're branching out to, by the way, they're going to have bounties with Lightning soon. Amjad is a real one. So keep track of that. You can see that the opportunity just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger over time. And now they're going to have, coding collaboration tools, and then the marketplace where people, coders and maybe one day designers are going to get paid. And then they're also just implemented their own large language model called Ghostwriter, which potentially could take on what OpenAI and Microsoft have released, with their own augmented artificial intelligence. Oh my God, the markets just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's what I would say is you may have step one, but think about where it could go in the future.
Thank you so much for that, Max. I want to be cautious of you guys' times. I'll let you go through any last words, and then we'll close off. How about that? Musman,
dream big. Follow your vision, follow your passion, but be mindful about what you don't know and what others around you don't know, including VCs, including customers, but of course, including yourselves. Understand how to navigate this uncertainty and focus on what you really do best. Figure out what you really do best, what drives you, what you want to do best. And for other things, learn how to obtain additional resources, either through VC, through capital, through networking, but just learn. Yeah.
Just do as much as you can for as little spend as possible, and just take it back to just being smart. Just be smart with your money, be smart with every dollar. Try to seek out, there's tons of resources online for things that you can learn about this, right? But, don't get distracted learning how to fundraise when you could be building the damn thing. If you build something that's great, in music, if you write hit songs, you're going to do great. Okay. You can spend all the time in the world trying to find the right manager and which record label and this and that, but you should just write some hits, and a lot of the rest will probably fall into place. Right. And when it's time to, did we incorporate right? Maybe we can fix this, and you'll a lot of that stuff will come together in time. But just stay with your head down and just work.
Some wise words from both of these guys. Very, very, very good wisdom there. I think I would just say the first thing that I would focus on for all of you is just understand what you want. I think that the world is remarkably malleable, and you can pretty much do just about anything over a long enough period of time. You have to understand what you want. And so, I first echo Oleg's point of we're VCs and we play a specific game, but honestly, who cares what we say? If you have a vision for what you want to do in the world, we're irrelevant. We can be helpful to you, but maybe you say, actually, fuck these guys, we're going to do this in a totally different way. Great. Amazing. The best, most amazing founders don't really need our help, right? And so I would say, but first you have to know what it is you want in the world. And don't be afraid to do something completely crazy that doesn't have a name yet, that is completely bold and wild. You get one life to live, so, make it count.
Yeah.
Some wise words from Max, and I'm just gonna take the last part of it. Basically, you said YOLO.
Sure, why not?
No, this has been fantastic. I would love to have you on continuously. This has been an amazing conversation. I'm pretty sure all the founders out there, all the legends of Lightning, all the participants, all the makers, all the 73 different projects would definitely find this information very valuable. We're going into the final stages now. Next week, we're going to be announcing the legends and all the other winners and stuff like that. Big up Fulgur Ventures as well. Thank you for sponsoring the Legends of Lightning tournament. The support that both Max and Mike have been giving us. If you have a project that is seeking funding, if it's a big idea, hit up these VCs. They got money. They want to invest in unicorns. They want to find unicorns. Maybe you can help them find unicorns. I don't know, right? Let's go for it.
One last thing I just want to throw out there, which is like huge fucking ups to Johns and Ed. All of y'all, like, y'all really owe these dudes big time. Like, the work that they've been doing tirelessly over the last year and a half, honestly, I would say MVPs the entire Lightning space. Like, doing all this out of a pure passion project. And that honestly is an example of just following what it is you want to see happen in the world. Like, no one, like, this thing didn't have to exist. This was an idea they had, and they, through sheer force of will, made it happen. So seriously, big ups to these guys, and they're an inspiration and for all y'all as builders. And like, you can just make stuff happen.
Who knew that maybe the unicorn is within us after all? See, look deeply, maybe. But no, we couldn't do it without the support, without the community, and for all you other founders and people working on project there, all you different makers, myself and Ed, I try to get him up there. It's been a difficult road. I don't know, difficult. Didn't know that was a word, but it's been a difficult word. It's been a difficult year so far, and obviously I can't really speak much, so I'm going to end it here and just say, keep going. It is stressful. A lot of the times, a lot of people may not believe in you, but just keep going. If you believe in your idea, that's all that matters. And as Max says, YOLO. Just do it, man. YOLO. Peace, guys.